Hello and welcome to I and a Student. I and a Student is a segment for students who opt a topic, do their research and present them in front of our audience. So today we have Mansi Jain who is going to enlighten us on her research topic, that is Introduction to Transfer of Property Act and what are immovable properties. She is from KES Shri Jayanti Lal Patel Law College. So let's welcome Mansi Jain.
Greetings everyone. I am Mansi Jain and I'll be giving an introduction to Transfer of Property Act 1882 and what are immovable properties. So let's take two examples to understand where does this act applies to. In example 1, A makes a will that after his death, his house will be transferred to B. And in example 2, A wants to sell his house and B wants to purchase that house. So in example B, the transfer takes place by the act of the parties, and in example A, the transfer takes place by the operation of law, that is via will. So the Transfer of Property Act governs only those type of transfers which are by the act of the parties, and does not governs those transfers which are by the operation of law, that is by a will, succession or the execution of the decree of the court. So, Section 5 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882 defines transfer of property as an act by which a living person conveys property in present or in future to one or more other living person or to himself and one or more other living person, and to transfer of property is to perform such act. Here the word conveys the property is used, which means right of one person is now extinguished and the right of other person has started now. So moving further, that Transfer of Property Act is not exhaustive in nature. Why? Because the preamble itself says that it is an act which applies to only those type of transfers where the transfer is by the act of the parties. And this preamble has to be read with subsection D of section 2 of the act, which provides that nothing in this Transfer of Property Act shall apply to those transfers either by operation of law or in execution of the decree of the court. Moving further, this act is not exhaustive also because chapter 2 of the act itself says that act is not applicable upon Muslims. That means the personal laws are to be referred. Moving further, what is the territorial jurisdiction of the Transfer of Property Act 1882, which is given under section 1? So the act applies to the whole of India except Punjab. But this act was not enforced throughout India in one stretch. Was made applicable in different parts of India from time to time at different stage. At the time of the commencement of the act, it was enforceable throughout India under British rule except Burma, Punjab and Bombay. However, the local government was empowered to make the act applicable in their territory by giving a notification in the official gazette. So, also the government grants are also excluded from the jurisdiction of the Transfer of Property Act because section 2 of the Government Grants Act 15 of 1895 provides that nothing contained in Transfer of Property Act shall apply to any grant or other transfers of land made by or on behalf of government in favor of any person. Moving further to understand what are immovable properties. So, immovable properties is nor completely nor explicitly defined under the Transfer of Property Act. It simply says that the immovable property excludes standing timber, growing crops and grass. But to define and understand what are immovable properties, help of subsection 26 of section 3 of the General Clauses Act and subsection 6 of section 2 of the Registration Act has to be taken. So, immovable properties includes land, benefits to arise out of land, things attached to the earth, that is, things embedded in the earth, things attached to what is embedded in the earth, things rooted in the earth, except standing timber, growing crops and growing grass. Let's understand it one by one. What does the definition means to say? So first is land. Land means the surface of the earth, includes upon the surface of the earth and under and above the surface of the earth. So anything upon the surface of the earth, so long as it is not removed from there, shall be part of the land and will be an immovable property. So water accumulated on the pond or a lake gives an impression that it's an movable property, but it is upon the surface of the earth. Hence, it is an immovable property. Also, when we see the river flowing from the rivers, it gives an impression that it is an movable property, but it is not a movable property because it is upon the surface of the earth. So the water of the river is also a immovable property. The other examples can be a coal and gold mines. Moving further with the definition that the benefits to arise out of land. So any right which is exercised over a land or other immovable property, by exercise of that right a person gets benefit out of it, would be his intangible immovable property. For example, to say the right of a ferry. Right of a ferry means a means of transportation on rivers, lakes by boats or steamers. So this right of ferry is an immovable property. Moving further, that is things attached to the earth, that is things embedded in the earth, that is like house, building, walls, electric poles. Second, things attached to what is embedded in the earth. Things attached to something which is embedded for its permanent beneficial enjoyment, that is doors, windows, shutters, etc. Third, things rooted in the earth, that is trees, plants, shrubs, but things rooted in the earth has exceptions, that is standing timber, growing crops and grass. These are though rooted but are immovable property. Also, food bearing trees are not standing timber. Growing grass and crops are also movable property because every crop is bound to be cut when it becomes leaf. That's it. Thank you.
Mansi, thank you very much. In fact, first time somebody has spoken of immovable property in a very different concept, like river flowing and all these concepts which you have said. These are very unique and it was really nice to hear. Otherwise, people speak on that typical kind of immovable property. You have chosen to speak on a very different topic. So thank you very much for that. A small token from Hammurabi to you.